Whenever you're creating your sketches for your microorganism mug, there's a couple of things that we need to make sure we have in them. So first, you have to come up with 2 different designs for your mug. For each of your designs, you have to show one of the principles of designs that are listed here. You can show movement in both of them or one of them. You could also show symmetrical balance or asymmetrical balance. There needs to be clear depictions on how your sculpted elements will be placed around your box. Be specific with how you draw it out so I clearly can see and you clearly know where you want certain sculpted elements to go, and be creative. You also need to have a creative handle on the work, and we'll talk about different handles that we can do once we start sketching it out. To review movement, you create movement by placing your sculpted elements on angles or clumped together to form angled lines. So notice in all 3 of these images that we have angled movements or these, curvy lines that the sculpted elements are being placed on. And you can imply angled lines by the way you arrange the elements. So whatever you choose to do is fine, as long as, if you want to show movement, place your sculpted elements on angles. Whatever you choose to do is fine, as long as, if you want to show movement, place your sculpted elements on angles. You can also show symmetrical balance. Symmetrical balance is when your sculpted elements are going to be the same on either side of your mug. So if you would draw a line through the center of your mug, the items on either side of that line are going to be exactly the same. They're not going to be different. They're not going to vary from side to side. There might be a slight difference, but they pretty much should be the same for it to be considered symmetrical balance. If you want to show asymmetrical balance, that is when 2 sides of the mug are not identical. So here, if I would draw a line through, you can see that there's different elements on this side than there are on that side. So if you want to have like a heavier weighted mug where you have more elements on one side and less on the other, then asymmetrical balance would be a great principle to choose. Now, whenever you're drawing your handle in, I want you to think about how it can relate to the sculpted elements on your mug, or how can the sculpted elements be incorporated into your handle. When you draw out your handle for this mug, we're going to be making a traditional handle. So a traditional handle is going to have this type of a shape where it's a little bit thicker on the top and then it gets a little bit thinner on the bottom. Figure out how your sculpted elements can be incorporated onto, maybe around, or or even through this opening. How can you incorporate these sculpted bits onto the handle? So we have some amazing things on here. One, we have this texture that's being carried onto it, but we also have this layering going on where we're seeing pockets of other sculpted elements poking through. This handle looks like it's growing out of the sculpted elements and turning back into them, which is a beautiful depiction of that. I also love here on this one where we can see a separation change, but it looks like when it's growing out from this kind of bark-like texture and then kind of splatted on. This little outline just gives an extra bit of interest there that I really enjoy in the work. Think creatively. What can you do to layer different sculpted elements onto your handle to make that handle look extremely creative and interesting? And then lastly, whenever you're designing your mug, think about where you can put your sculpted elements. How can you incorporate the bottom of your mug into your design? We're always lifting up the mug, and when we look at other people drinking, we can always see the bottom of that mug whenever they lift it up to take a sip. So what little nuggets of creative amazingness can you put in there to make it look really exciting? Also, you have the inside of your mug that you can put sculpted elements in. I love how this tentacle is coming from the inside and out like that. That's a really interesting movement that you can incorporate into your own work, almost to where like the microorganisms look like they're coming out from the inside and spilling over onto the outside of the mug. So be creative with every surface of this mug that you have. Before you begin your sketches, I would like you to look at Lori Phillips' work on her Instagram page. You're going to have to find images that fit different categories. And these categories are going to be things that you're going to also have to be incorporated, or these categories are things that you have to incorporate into your own project. So one, I'm going to be grading you on your use of texture. You'll notice as we scroll through her pieces that her texture is incredible. She has different types of texture on the work that adds lots of variety to it. And the texture is clean and thought out and methodical. It's not just randomly put in there. It's not rushed in. It has this attentiveness to it where she took a lot of time to develop it to make it look really clean. You're also going to have to find examples, in addition to finding cool textures, but also interesting ways that she's incorporating interesting sculpted handles into the work. So here is a beautiful mug, and look at that handle. It's very simple, it's very elegant, but it reflects the sculpted elements that she's putting elsewhere in the mug. And because she's adding that very subtle detail, it makes that handle stand out so much more. Additionally, you're going to have to find a picture where she's combining two different elements together that are working really well. And this is something that she does beautifully, where she's taking two different sculpted elements, sometimes even more than just two, and putting them together. And when you see her combining different things, ask yourself, what is it that's so successful about it? Why do I like this so much? Or what is working so well? And notice a lot of the times the texture almost reflects the shape of the sculpted elements. We have those rounded dots on the bottom, and they reflect the rounded edges of the little coils that are popping up, but also the dots on that pot on the right. The last thing that I want you to do for your Lori Phillips research activity is I want you to choose an image that shows a 360-degree view of a mug. So here would be an example of us seeing a 360-degree view. I want you to state one thing that is successful on her mug. Is it her use of texture, her interesting handle? Is it like the combining of different sculpted elements together? Is it her layering? Maybe it's her craftsmanship. State the thing that you think is most successful. And then I also want you to state one thing that you're going to copy that she's doing and how you're going to incorporate that into your work. So notice we just got that little nugget of the bottom of her mug there. We got a little taste of how every surface of her mug is being cared for and having an attention to it. So think about, what is she doing on this mug that you would want to steal onto yours? If it was me, I love this layering where we have that one layer with the lines being put on it, and then we have a second layer added on top with that really beautiful kind of roughed in texture. So if I was creating my mug, I would steal that technique but do it with my sculpted elements. So once again, I would like to see two different designs. They need to show the principle of design movement, symmetrical balance, or asymmetrical balance. There should be clear drawings on how you're going to sculpt your elements around your box. And I need to see a creative handle. So let's take a look at what these sketches should actually look like. Begin by drawing a basic cylinder shape for your mug. You're going to have to draw this twice. After you've drawn it twice, draw in the handle, making it bigger on the top and smaller on the bottom. Do this to both sides. Then decide what type of principle of design you want to show. I'm choosing to show symmetrical balance, so everything that I sculpt on the left-hand side of my mug is going to be the exact same thing I draw on the right. So my sketch needs to show that by having both sides of this mug look the same. And you are going to have to draw out both sides of your mug for every sketch so I can see what it's actually going to look like. Then begin mapping it in, trying to capture that principle of design. I am using this technique that Lori Phillips did in her work where she has that layered look, and I love that. So I'm going to steal that from her. And as you draw out, always think about, how is what I'm putting in aiding to my overall design? Does it look unified with one another? And I'm trying to have this circular pattern because I'm also going to be including that round orb on the top of my rectangular slab there. These sketches should be highly detailed so I can see what you're going to be doing in certain areas, but also as a reminder for yourself of what you're going to be putting on the mug at different spots. Remember, in these sketches, you need to have things that are indented into the clay surface and objects that are scored and slipped onto the clay surface to create high and low relief. So my low relief is that circular pattern on the bottom. My high relief are going to be these three-dimensional orbs with these indented circles on them that are going to be on the top portion of my mug. So for these sketches, I need to have two different designs. They must show one of the principles of designs for the project being movement, symmetrical balance, or asymmetrical balance. They should show clear depictions on how your sculpted elements will be placed around your box. It's creative with a creative handle. And for each design, I need to see both sides of the mug drawn out. Good luck and have fun!